Yeah, I'm president of Blue Marble Geographics. How many people have heard of us before? All right, that's good. We've been around now for 20 years. It's our 20th year in business, and I have been at the helm of the company since 2004 or so. Started with the company in 2003. Kathy asked me to give a talk that was going to be a little bit, beyond just a demo, so I'm not going to just open up the software and do the demo, although that was a very interesting talk that we just saw. Actually, no, I lied. I'll open the software a little bit, but I'm going to try to do a talk that maybe just to generate some thinking or share some thoughts from things that I see, because I go to a lot of trade shows. And one of the things that I've noticed over the past few years is this theme about LiDAR data, and I don't know if you guys have asked yourselves this, but I certainly have. As a software vendor, as a software developer, is LiDAR data outpacing what GIS software can do, and what does that mean, and can we keep up? And I don't know if anyone else has had that thought, looking at the data that we've started to get delivered, but that's certainly one that's in the forefront for me, running a mapping software company. So I'm going to try to talk about that, what LiDAR data is, and how that relates to software, GIS software, and the marketplace that we're in. And Kathy asked, about what our plans are for the company, where we're going, so I'm going to kind of tie it into that. And one of the things that we're always asking ourselves at Blue Marble is, okay, what's the next thing? What do we have to plan for? What are we going to do with our software? And when you think about LiDAR data and what we just saw from the gentleman from Autodesk, everything's 3D, right? It's now, instead of top-down 2D, it's 3D. And what does that mean, right? Well, this creates a problem for me. And this is my problem. His name's Victor. He's our Chief Technology Officer. He looks younger than he really is. I think he's about 40 now, actually. And there's kind of a devious little smile there. He doesn't know I'm doing this to him, by the way. But we've been talking about LiDAR data from a development perspective for probably 5 or 6 years now, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what we first started on. But whenever it comes up, what are we going to do? What are we going to do next? He gets this devious look on his face and kind of rubs his hands together. And what he's thinking about, if you know any software developers, if you work with software developers and you get to know them a little bit, actually the way to figure this out about them is to sit in on an interview with a new software developer or a prospective software developer, and you have to stay awake the whole time for that half hour of, linear algebra, Calc 2, and did you get into Java or C++ or what have you. You have to go through all that stuff until the part in the interview where we get to say, so what do you do in your free time? What do you like to do in your free time? And sure, they might throw out I go bike riding or whatever. The business side of things and software, the sales folks, it's all, I hike, I mountain bike, I hang out with my family, I do this, I do that. The software developer side is a little bit different. There's certainly going to be a few other activities, and I don't want to pigeonhole anybody, but there's inevitably, I'm a gamer. I play World of Warcraft, or I do this craft, or Minecraft, or whatever. And Victor gets a smile on his face like, all right. Because what they do at lunch at our place is they take over our network, and they're playing, I don't even know what world of whatever, and they're doing the gaming. And it's not video games, by the way. It's not, if you're from the 80s like me, it's not, Pac-Man and all that stuff. No, not video game anymore. It's gamer. You're a gamer. And so, if you're a gamer, with this guy, you're in. So how does that relate to LiDAR data? Well, this is Global Mapper. This is a 3D rendering, a terrain surface with a nice, ortho image draped over there and made all pretty in there. This is GIS. And Global Mapper, by the way, is the software that we're featuring here for you guys. This is a low-cost GIS solution. You really got to check it out if you haven't. But that's Global Mapper. This is World of Warcraft, I think, or something like that. One of those video game engines, They're not that different, right? So if we develop a 3D engine that can render imagery, and you can do fly-throughs, and you can really do what the guy from Autodesk was doing, really, but a little bit different in our own take, you can do this. You can get monsters in there and stuff and level up. I don't know. I have software guys that take days off, weekends, to go down to Boston to level up. And that's, so anyway, so Victor, back to Victor, he wants, in his heart, and that's what he wants to do. He wants to get into, a gaming engine from Blue Marble, Geographics, whole new market. No, Victor, you do the development, we'll do the business, and anyway. But so it's kind of an exciting time to actually be having that kind of conversation in GIS software and what we're thinking about. But before I go into what we're thinking about and what our software does a little bit more, I want to give you a background on Blue Marble because I think we're a little bit different. Although when I was at lunch earlier with some folks from the area, I realized being from Maine is really not that dissimilar from maybe being from Wyoming a little bit, right? The thing about being a software company in Maine, I always have to sort of explain to folks why that's different. And why that's different is because Maine, if you know anything about Maine, has anyone ever been to Maine? All right, not bad. About 50%, I'd say. Maine is now a tourist economy, really. I mean, we're known for our lobster and, and our outside activities and things like that, but we're a tourist economy today, whereas we used to be more of a natural resources-based economy, logging, and a real fisheries, a big ground fisheries. There used to be so much cod off the coast of Maine that, you couldn't walk into the water without bumping into it, they'd say. I don't know, but that's all gone away, and everything has changed quite dramatically for us from an economy perspective. And to get a feel for that, what I talk to folks about is sort of this north-south divide in Maine. You can put this line right in the middle of the state. South of that, we're a lot, regrettably, like Massachusetts. It's very urbanized, a lot of suburbs. Portland is a decent-sized city, and you can live south of that line and be in commutable distance to Portland. If you're down in the very south of Maine, down Kittery and Kennebunkport, where George Bush Sr. lives, you're in commutable distance to Boston. It's really an hour or so, depending if you do the train or how you want to do it. But it's dramatically different than north of that line, which is just very, very rural, small population, forestry, and just quite different. And the economy there is struggling very much, but it has fed the technology development in Maine historically. We came out of the GIS survey side of things. Our founder was out of the forestry school at the University of Maine, and he worked early on in problems for GIS software around coordinate transformation and managing your timber resources, and that's how our software developed. A real business need, we need to figure out how to do this more efficiently or more reliably. That's how our software developed. There's no VC in Maine. There's no, Silicon Valley. We're not making Twitter or Facebook, as cool as that stuff is. It's a different kind of technology. There are a lot of GIS companies in Maine, though. There's Sewell Company and Delorme Mapping, and there's other sort of natural resources-based technology going on. The University of Maine is co-developing offshore wind, the first offshore wind farm potentially in the U.S. with Statoil. I'm talking deep water. And University of Maine is also doing things around alternative timber products, and there's other innovative things going on. But very much natural resources based, very much a technical solution to a business problem kind of approach. And that's kind of, there's two things about us being from Maine. That's the one thing. So we're a software company in Maine. And that means that we're going to help somebody do their job better. We're going to have a customer that's going to work with us and tell us what we need to do. We're not going to build it and they will come. It's not the .com model at all. It's customer-driven development. Traditionally for us, what that has been for most of the 20 years has been about coordinate conversion. We like to say mind the gap between the world and map. And this is part of the presentation where maybe I don't have to do this for this audience, but I'll just, this is not over your heads, I'm sure. But the issue about Blue Marble, why Blue Marble has mattered for decades is this issue, right? And it's about mapping and communicating location. That's what mapping is about. And taking this round surface and putting it onto a flat map, we have to do that in order to, logically and consistently communicate location. It's not the kind of thing where you're going to say, all right, how do I get to the store? Well, go out the door, go 0.00005 degrees left, and then go 0.0003 degrees right, and 0.012 gradients, and there you are. That's not how we communicate distance or location. We're the Flat Earth Society. And so Blue Marble's core technology over the years has been the Geographic Calculator, the GeoCal coordinate library, used all over the world, and it's about making it so people can communicate on a flat surface and say, you go out the road and you You go 100 feet, take a right, go a half mile, take a left, You guys all know this, but that's been our core niche in mapping. And if you're doing a lot of GIS today and you're making a lot of maps, a lot of GIS solutions have a lot of that stuff in there. But we go today with this stuff way, way, way deeper. We have time-dependent coordinate system models. We have unmatched geoid models as far as number and the ability to do offsets from a geoid or a vertical datum. We just added VDatum, which is from NOAA, their tidal model for geoids. So that's where we go with coordinate transformation, not your everyday GIS stuff. Just to enable companies like this, I don't care if you want to say it's Google or here, which is Navtech. I'm sitting next to the Navtech guys and we're wrestling with that. The company, we help folks get this data ready to be provided to the market and you never even hear about us. We're in the background. Until a couple of years ago, and this is to remind me the other aspect of being a software company for Maine, it's organic growth for us. So we grew over the past 20 years very organically. If we had profits this year, we'd hire a developer. If we had some more, we'd make a decision, to hire somebody to do something else. And eventually, a couple of years ago, we were able to acquire Global Mapper. And this has been a dramatic change for us, and it's been a real great thing for us. So now we are starting to go to conferences like this because we want to talk to folks about using this solution. This is a truly low-cost GIS, starts under $400, very easy to use, supports over 200 file formats. Sorry, that's my shameless plug. But the point is that Global Mapper has changed what we're doing from a mapping perspective. And we only acquired it because of the format support. We didn't really kind of know what we had, and now we do. And we're out talking to folks about it and hopefully helping make your work a little easier. So that's Blue Marble from a company perspective. And so with Global Mapper, that's how we're wrestling with LiDAR a lot today on the presenting data, getting it in and working with point clouds and creating surfaces and managing the data. For the past 5-6 years, we've been on vertical coordinate transformation for LiDAR data if you want to take it from a Earth-centered Earth fix and bring it to a local geoid. So now today we have a lot of software that addresses LiDAR, and so I've kind of been exposed to a lot of this stuff. And I think the thing about LiDAR, really, if you'll bear with me, I'm not a philosopher or whatever, but or historian, though I almost was a history major. But I think we're looking at disruptive technology, at least within our industry. And traditionally, disruptive technology are things like the automobile or the telephone, or certainly, if anybody knows anything about your mapping, the mobile clock revolutionized mapping by being able to travel and record longitude on a ship. Things like, we think about the TV or the airplane or what have you. But I think within industry there are niches of disruptive technology. I definitely think that Google Maps was a disruptive technology for GIS, professionals really. We didn't know it at the time. We might have called it Pop GIS, but within a few years, all of a sudden, everybody wanted to look at it on Google Maps. And they wanted to think, what's the $100,000 word? Spatially. They wanted to think, spatially before they picked that, where am I going to put that Starbucks? Well, I want to see it on a map. LiDAR data is having the same effect. And what I mean by that is the amount and the volume and the accuracy of the data that it's generating. And it's making software vendors, I think, work harder and kind of step up to the table a little bit. We want to be careful about what we call disruptive technology within our own industry, and I don't claim to know everything. I'm hoping that I'm not putting LiDAR in there with like the keytar, which was bad disruptive technology. If you know anything about 80s music, you don't want to go there. It just ruined a decade of music, and we're just recovering. But LiDAR data is making us think like this. I want to see that building extrude from that surface, and I can do it. I want to see it in a 3D, not just a top-down 2D kind of model. I want to see a world, the full world. And there's a lot of great uses for that. But back to Victor. So does this mean he gets to create a gaming engine? Is Blue Marble going to come out with a gaming engine? Well, I don't know, Victor. Just relax for a second there. So let's see if I can get educational. And I am not an expert, but this is what I know about LiDAR, and I'm sure there are folks in the room that know more than I do. With the truck there is the Optex Lynx mobile mapper camera, and that is one of the most powerful cameras, I think, on the market today. This camera has kind of really pushed the envelope. It was developed by the founder of Optec, was one of the guys who developed the first camera for the Mars rover, so somebody who really knows what he's doing. And if you go to any GIS show, where there's a lot of different vendors and a lot of new technology going on, and I don't mean that one in San Diego, I mean like SPAR or Intergeo in Germany. You're going to see a lot of new hardware vendors out there with their LiDAR collection stuff. And what they're telling us are things like, oh, well, I can collect 30,000 points in a second. I can collect that intersection in 5 minutes. That's a new paradigm. This woman right here with this handheld, she was at SPAR next to me in 3D laser mapping. This is a LiDAR camera. She's just walking around the room, the whole conference, not the whole conference, it only took her 15 minutes, did the whole hall and then had a 3D model of the hall, a point cloud model. So we're talking about points, the quality of a survey point. I mean, really in-depth, really, massive data, very quickly gathered. The thing about that data is it reminds me of this problem I have when I order sushi. My wife won't let me do this anymore because we've got a Thai restaurant that makes great sushi, and the woman on the phone has a little bit of an accent. I'm also not focused after I'm out of work. I'm just like, whatever. So I get confused. I need a roll. I need 6 slices of sushi in 1 roll or 6 rolls, or I get it all messed up, and instead of getting 1 sushi roll with 6 pieces, twice now I've ended up with 6 sushi rolls with all this stuff, and it's like the point clouds. It's like, boom, here you go. Here's all this data. It's raw. You're going to have to use it. You paid for it. Good luck, Now, that's not what all the vendors are doing. Some of them are bringing their own software solutions or working with companies like us. But the point is that it's just this massive amount of data. And if you get this much sushi put in front of you, you get that feeling. So we have the point clouds, we have all this data that's being delivered to us, and the question is, how are you going to manage it? How are you going to work with it? What do you have? You can have, like I said, we can go out and survey an intersection, and we can do that, and we can have a point cloud that's 10 million points or 5 million points or something like that. And again, the overwhelming data, that the way this is different is that this was just done a few years ago with one guy with a tripod, or maybe 2 or 3 folks with a tripod, and they would come back and they would have nowhere near that kind of data. So it's really something that we want to be able to grasp on and handle. And what you need to be able to do is to handle the point cloud in your software. And so proper management of this data is to be able to consume the point data, and I argue, and give the user the ability to decide how they will or will not decimate that data. If you have a GIS software solution and the vendor comes and shows you this software in a point cloud that they've already decimated, and there's no interface for you to decimate the data, meaning trim it down, thin it down, you don't have control over that. You're taking that sushi and you're just pushing half of it off the table, and you haven't even decided whether or not you like the avocado roll or the California roll or the whatever, right? So what we do with software, this is a screenshot of Global Mapper, is we have the ability to load this point cloud, select the different classifications. We can load in all ground, we can load in the vegetation types, we can load in all the points, which you would want to do in the first time looking at your data anyway. And we can handle this point cloud data. We can now view and manage in Global Mapper on a crappy little laptop like what I have, 1 billion points. You can view it, you can manipulate it, you can scan through the data. Most GIS software, and I'm not going to name names, falls apart over 10 million points. And that is a very small survey from a LiDAR point cloud. It is not robust. If you go to these shows, these GIS conferences, and you see everybody showing their point cloud data, because the vendors are there with their cameras and their trucks and everything, and the software vendors, every screen has a 3D point cloud. You just have to go and ask those folks what's going on, and ask them about how big that point cloud is, and what kind of classification management they have. Do they follow the ASPR last specs? Can they handle LAZ, the zip compressed format, which, by the way, you definitely want to be able to handle? And then what do they do for gridding? So the other point of gridding is, this is where the decimation really comes into play a lot. Folks will want to immediately make a surface out of their point cloud. If you do automated decimation of that, when you're making that surface, and then you have, again, you're losing value. You can have a LiDAR point cloud that was collected at sub-meter resolution. You want to have the ability to have multiple grid methods, so that if you want to grid, say, based on a point every meter, you can select that. Or maybe you want to use a different technique where it's point spacing based on the survey. Our software does that. Again, not all software can do that for you. And then provides the statistics and the data, the metadata around that. And this is a kind of looks blurry to me, but anyways, these are all the statistics based on the last spec, accessing them in a path profile that can be edited. You can do this right now in Global Mapper. Just a variety of tools. I'm going to quickly flip over to a quick demo, which I think is a valuable demo about LiDAR if you haven't played with LiDAR data yet. This is an island off the coast of Maine, and I guess one of the ways that we are different from this area is that we have to deal with point clouds that have a lot of water in them, and that creates a lot of noise in the cloud and can be very difficult to deal with. But I'm looking at this historic feature on land. This is a colonial fort. I believe it's either Fort George or Fort Washington. I can never remember. It has a great little feature in there, right? And so we had a client that was doing some excavating off to the north here, and they wanted to make sure they weren't going to impact this historic feature, so they wanted to look at the surface underneath that feature. Well, in Global Mapper, you can access hundreds of sources of online data through WMS or WFS, and what they first did in the software was downloaded a 10-meter digital elevation model to look at the area. And they realized right away that, that's not going to work. They can't see the undulation of the fort walls at all. You can throw it into the 3D viewer, get a different look at it. Sure enough, this is not a good model for making this judgment call. So what you're going to want to do is bring in the LiDAR data that was just collected for the coast of Maine by the good folks at NOAA. And of course, I didn't have my directory set up ahead of time, so I've got to find this. So if I bring in this LAZ file, I can decide what points I want, or I could grid it right on load. I might bring in the ground classifications and look at those real quickly, but I don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to go into that. I did talk about the gridding methods, and I can do it by bin sizes, by meters, by point spacing. But I just want to show you the end result of bringing in this LiDAR data and the power of this data for GIS. You can see with this sub-meter resolution LiDAR data, you can see the undulation in the dirt in the infield. That's centimeter accuracy. This is publicly available on the state of Maine OGIS website. A lot of states are starting to get this. I don't know what they're flying in Wyoming, but that right there is a new digital elevation model I made on the ground points, and it's a sub-meter resolution, and it's just awesome. There's a lot more that our customers are doing with this. They're using this for as-built engineering. They're doing volumetric calculations. They're doing watersheds. I was talking to some folks about erosion in the area. When you have a surface this accurate, there's a lot of power and a lot you can do. So, LiDAR is changing what's going on for GIS, and I think it's in a great way. And by the way, this functionality that I'm showing you in Global Mapper, this is only stuff we added with 14.2, which was last January. And I'm now on 15, which we're releasing actually tomorrow night. So it's really cutting edge stuff. But the cool thing about our industry is that we get to work with this stuff. That's what I love about my job. This is some Optech data, and I just wanted to show it to you because I wanted to make sure my machine bogged down and didn't work right. Oh, no, there we go. So this is kind of getting to Victor's, gaming engine. Can we do this? We already can do some of this. Obviously, this is just a point cloud, but it's an RGB value point cloud, so it's taken colors from raster imagery. You can get down, and when you look at this correctly, you can actually read the license plate off of this van. And this is about a 57 million point cloud. And you can just throw that into the overlay control panel and do the math right there. You can see it's 3 files. So that's a pretty good size piece of data. And Optech, when they're collecting the data, that is about the size of a point cloud they want to be able to handle. So that's from the vendor. I don't know what our expectations as users should be. What should our software be able to handle? But I would think in the least you'd want to be able to handle what the vendor is telling you should be able to handle. So back to Victor. And I'm dead serious. He's always talking gaming engine. He really wants to do this. And so to Kathy's, request, where we're going with this, I mean, obviously, for us first up front was being able to handle the data as it's delivered, both from a coordinate transformation perspective. And by the way, with Global Mapper, we have a module called Global Energy Mapper. You'll be able to use our GeoCalc libraries in that and do 3D coordinate transformation on point clouds. But we wanted to be able to consume the data and manage the data and give the user the ability to edit or manipulate it at their discretion. So yes, you can decimate it down to a dumb, lightweight, 10-meter resolution DEM if that's what you want to do with our software. And as far as a gaming engine and what we're going to do with 3D, I guess you'll have to wait and see. So that's about it. Please come visit me down the hall. I'll be there hanging out with the here guys. Thank you.